Hi, this is Donna Crowley, the Happy Hippie, and I was in the mood to make something on the wheel that is just for fun. Um, Believe it or not, just do that once in a while just for fun. I already took 1 pound of clay and have centered it. I'll probably do a little bit more centering, but just to let you know, this is going to be a just for fun piece that you can carve on afterwards. And I'll go ahead and I'll give it to my daughter to carve on because she really brings the glory out in the buttery clay to bring out some interesting features that I may not have thought of. So I'll throw this piece and with the intention that it will become something that my daughter will carve on. Last time she carved on a bowl, it was very beautiful, and then I taught her how to glaze it as well. But I'm going to go ahead, I've centered this, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring it up. And when we bring it up, we're just applying gentle pressure to the bottom, similar to where the rim would be, or to where the foot would be, and then keeping a little pressure on the top so it can still rise. And you end up with a smaller cylinder type shape. And next is the part where we open the vase. We can still do this at full speed on the wheel. There's no danger of knocking it out of center at this point, but at this point we just, I tend to do it with 2 thumbs in the middle and remembering not to go down too far. And people would be freaking out now if I didn't teach you the technique of stop the wheel, test to see how far down you are, that type of thing. But I don't go down as far because I'm gonna mess. I tend to have the mess with the bottom a little bit more, and I'll throw the bottom right out if I don't leave a thicker bottom. So when I'm continuing to throw, that bottom will get less and less dense as I go. So next, with 2 fingers, and I just rest my thumb on the outside gently, I'm going to pull this open a little bit wider than I would a standard coffee cup. So how many inches it is, I don't know, I'll just kind of gauge with my eyes how many inches it is. It's about 2.5 inches. And you can go wider for a standard coffee cup if you want a shorter, squatter one with 1 pound of clay. But if I go too much farther than that with 1 pound of clay, there's not going to be anything to go up. Now I'm gently compressing the clay in the bottom. Why is that important? Well, for one thing, it gets the extra moisture up out of there, and it gets your bottom a little bit more flattened. Now that's habit for me too. Now this piece, I'm planning on not even be able to see the inside. I'm going to bring it up and bring the top to almost enclosed because I want it to be a thicker piece that can be carved on. Thicker means there's more options for carving and it won't be so fragile at the leather hard stage. So I'm going to add more water back to it though. I mean, I took water out, now I'm adding more like this so it's nice and slippery. And I'm going to do the first pull. You've heard me mention the pulls. That's where we do gentle compressions as we move our fingers up, squeezing gently, but not to the point where we're, dominating the clay. It's just gentle. And I'm going to do pull number 2. Pulling up. I've still got fairly thick walls. At this point, I could trim the foot and it would be a very thick, small espresso cup. So, but that's not what I'm planning on it to be. I feel like the clay wants to be something different, something that I don't make very often, which is just something fun. Something fun to be carved on. So I'm going to pull again, which means I'm going to need a little bit more water. Okay, pulling up. All right. Now at this point, whether it was a mug, or a small rosebud vase or whatever, you could shape it into whatever you wanted. This is just the standard to get started. And now I kind of have to decide, am I going to trim the foot and have a foot that I normally do, or I'm going to just do it with my wedge tool here and just go in at the bottom when I'm getting close to being done. I think so, because I kind of want to give the illusion of it being more rounded at the bottom and almost like an inverted teardrop at the top. At least that's what I'm envisioning. Whether it turns out that way, we'll see. Sometimes I surprise myself. So at this point, I'm going to go inside with just a standard sponge, and I'm going to squish it down a little bit so it fits better in the crack. And I'm going to do, I'm going to push out on the outside, and I'm going to make it more potbelly shaped. There. This could still end up being a coffee mug. Having it being this way is not all that bad, if I wanted. But now, I'm going to slow the wheel down a little bit. One of my biggest mistakes is I forget that the speed of the wheel, having a little trouble getting it to go slower, impacts what I can do at different stages. So now I think I'm going to pot that out just a little bit more and see what happens. Let's see what happens. We'll pot it out just a little bit, more pot belly, right? Okay. Bring my fingers up in there. It helps that my fingers aren't real wide. Okay. Now this is called choking. You literally just choke the top, and you choke it to kind of close it off a little bit. So keeping my potbelly shape there, and then I'm just going to take my knuckle. I'm going to keep on coaxing this to be more and more narrow. So, and I can go back in there and I can push out on the bottom and make it wider if I want to, which I think I will. I'll just make it a little wider. Now every time you go in here and do something, you're running the risk that it is the last time the clay will let you do anything. So that comes with experience, with how many times will the clay let me push or bow out or push in. So some people, they have really good instincts, and they can make the clay do a lot more than I can. But I mean, this is just for the sense of, well, what can we do with some of these shapes to make them interesting to us? So I'll lift that up a little bit. So this is still fairly thick, and it could be carved on. I kind of wanted to get some of that grog off my hands. The more you use water, the more you're going to bring the sandy grit out of the clay. And sometimes it ends up on your hands, and you don't want to necessarily impress that back into the piece. So I'll wipe off my hands just a little bit there. And I'm going to see if I can coax this to close a little bit more. See, I'll use my knuckle. See if I can get this to close just a little bit more. Still with the goal of it being fairly thick so it can be carved on. Okay. I had hoped I could get this to close a little bit more. Now I could try to force it, but then it's going to flatten it. Let's see here. See what we can do. Coax it to close up just a little bit more. As long as you have an opening for the top for air to escape in the kiln, otherwise it will explode, kaboom, in the kiln, and you will have nothing. So I haven't played with shapes in a long time, so this is kind of fun for me. sometimes if you don't try certain things, you don't know if you can do it. And I've changed clays enough times and techniques with how much water I'm using enough times that really coming and doing something like this is brand new all the time. Okay, good. I'm pretty sure our wall thickness is all about the same. I think that's about what I want. Like I said, I would prefer it to be a little more closed off, but I don't want to lose the piece, and I want to keep the integrity of the walls to be about the same. So I'm going to use my most used tool, this wedge, and I'm going to press into the foot, and it's going to rise up a little bit, and the foot will be more narrow and underneath the piece. So I'll just gently kind of do that, wiping my tool off as I go. Can't see down there as well, but I can feel with my fingers what's going on. So I'm going to go in a little bit more. I can see that I still have some leeway there. And now I'm making a mess on the wheel head, so I'll just kind of clean that up, because then I can back and use my fingers and get off that excess clay that just gathered on there. So yeah, I got kind of a mess down there. So what I'll do is I'll just keep on using the wedge until I smooth that out. Okay. Hey, I'm liking the way that looks. I'm thinking that as I feel down there, yeah, it's still messed up with the feel, but that's where you just kind of learn to go by what's going on feel-wise, and without putting too much pressure on that foot. See if I can get that cleaned up. Aha! I did it. So now we've got kind of pot bellies out in the middle, and then this is almost the same shape as the foot. And when I hand this over to my daughter to carve on, it should be thick enough that she can do a lot of different things with it. And then I'll probably suggest to her, after it's been through the final firing, that we put a small, I believe it's called a frog, in the bottom. It's like little pins, and then the flowers, when they're up, can be placed in perfectly without them drooping to the side. Whether we use high quality silk flowers or real flowers. And then people are attracted to the final piece, which is a little vase, a little carved on vase. So that's 1 pound of clay, and something you can do. I wouldn't say it's easy. It isn't. Nothing is really easy. It just depends on how your technique gets better and better. And don't use too much water. Don't use too much force, and just see if you can ease that up. And if you don't mind having a thinner piece, you can keep coaxing the neck of the piece to be closed more and more. So peace, love, and pottery.